A wise person once said, absence makes the heart grow fonder. And after 11 long years, the return of EA Sports College Football Series provides that is indeed true. The release of College Football 25 is one of the most anticipated games in sports history. Gamers have been eager to rekindle their classic rivalries, pull off incredible trick plays, and take your team of choice to the promised land. Now that College Football 25 is here, does it stand up to the lofty expectations? Or are those memories of the past better left in the past? Since its announcement, fans have speculated whether or not the gameplay for College Football 25 will feel just like a Madden reskin. Thankfully, that is not the case. College Football 25 does an excellent job of differentiating itself from other games by capturing the elements that make college football unique. As far as passing the ball goes, it's definitely an easier learning curve and has the wide open field college football is supposed to have. This is a sport where 400 passing yards is seen as almost normal, so there's no surprise there. There are the occasional mixed in off-target throws from different parts of the field. You're able to get balls over defenders' heads with your trajectory, and them not being able to leap 50 feet off the ground is very helpful this year. I will say there is a huge advantage to having an elusive quarterback, as they can look like Michael Lamar Jackson Vick out there with the number of broken tackles they can generate in the backfield. Please be nice to your controller when that happens. Now in the running game, if you have a numbers advantage, it can still get blown up by better players. But to have any consistent success, you must run into boxes where you have the numbers and angles. One of the biggest things I was worried about was the juke move being all anybody ever does because of how effective it was in Madden. In this game, well, yeah, it's still effective, but earned without people just skipping around the field with no regard for where the defenders are. This allows other moves like spin moves and hurdles to be shown off more as well. Now, I will have to say, man, there are a lot of fumbles from getting stood up around multiple defenders. Even when I protect the ball in settings, it still happens if multiple defenders get close while my progress is stopped. I don't know if that's going to be a long-lasting issue, but so far it has been noticeable. Another new feature that was added is the wear and tear system, which I was worried about being too restricting, but it makes sense so far. If I'm running with my quarterback without any worry for his health, those hits are going to add up. Continue to get big hits against my running back, and it shows up with his ratings getting docked in key spots. This adds another level of strategy to the game of football. Now in your typical play now game with 5 to 7 minute quarters, you might not notice this system too much, but over the course of a season in Dynasty or games with longer quarters and no accelerated clock, you'll definitely start to feel its effects. The offensive and defensive line play I would put as pretty balanced as currently constructed. Bad matchups do get exploited heavily, which in college football is obviously more common. Sometimes a quick pass route will get blown up, while I would have all the time in the world off of a play action to hit a deep pass. So far so good there. Although like I said, running quarterbacks do have an advantage, defenders do react fairly quickly when I do try to run up the middle for a scramble, which helps prevent players from trying to turn things into a game of Madden 04. When passing against and running man defense, at least so far, it's extremely easy to march your way down the field uninterrupted. Defenders will play the ball as best as they can, but typically the receiver is far enough away that it doesn't matter. Now with zone defense, you are way more likely to get turnovers with the computer as opposed to man. They do an excellent job of turning on the ball when it's within distance and make you pay for throwing to the sidelines, but can get heavily exploited with great route combinations if you have enough time to execute properly. Now I will say the game does a good job of having defenders within striking distance fight for contested catches. Most of the time defenders can punch the ball loose if they are close to the receiver, but you will still come down with the odd Sports Center crazy catch from time to time. The big change to usering on defense now is the ability to change to a different player mid-snap with the switch stick. The switch stick is a game changer. It will take some getting used to. The number of plays I've been able to alter or react to faster just by switching mid-play has been exciting, and I can't wait to play around with this longer. This is your best bet at causing the most havoc in the passing game. Now, you won't be afforded the chance at interceptions you have no business getting to in this game, so I'm thankful for that. But to be successful, you still have to know your angles to play the ball well. Now, as far as tackling, you really feel like it's just you and them out on an island. It's really hard to line them up properly for a tackle. There are far fewer ball carriers being sucked into the animation, so if you take even a slight incorrect angle, your opponent will have a good chance of just flying right by you. You have to be careful and settle for conservative tackles more often instead of trying to land a hit stick every play. So far, this seems better than relying on a computer who can get shaken out of their shoes fairly easily if your opponent attempts at least some kind of move on them. Otherwise, they seem to wrap up pretty consistently. Now, speaking of computer tackling, there are occurrences where the defender will take the worst possible angle of pursuit on the ball carrier, but I'm chalking it up to lesser defenders being lesser defenders. But I will say the biggest adjustment, at least right off the bat, players will need to make is actually in the kicking game. The new kick meter, though very intuitive, is incredibly challenging. You have to line up the moving slider in the green zone to determine your accuracy and fill up your power meter without going too far and causing a shank kick. It causes you to really think about how aggressive a kick you want to try to make. Are you willing to try for a little extra power on the long field goal and risk filling it up too much and ruining it entirely? The fact that there are more missed kicks in this game is very realistic to how college kickers perform on average. It also makes it incredibly rewarding when you do finally nail a clutch kick from 50 yards out. And now let's talk about the crown jewel of college football 25, Dynasty Mode, where your dream of recruiting with a low-level college to become the next Michigan Wolverines can come true. Starting out, you can create your head coach or coordinator to take over any team of your choice. You also get to choose which of the 3 main coaching archetypes you'll specialize in first. Loading into the mode has the usual franchise things you would expect. In college football, there are standings, rankings, stat tracking. I do love that there's a record book that tracks it by game, season, and career for conferences and individual teams. That is a great addition. Along with whatever coach you select, you have a coaching skill tree to deal with. Similar to NCAA Football 14, you will get certain advantages depending on which skill tree you choose to advance. Unlike NCAA Football 14, you will not be able to unlock every skill on every skill tree. Coaches max out at level 50, so you'll need to pick and choose which skills you unlock carefully. This also gives you a ton of replay value, as you can probably be unlocking skills you never used on your 3rd or 4th playthrough. Some skill trees also require certain requirements to be met before you can start progressing them. Now, as far as recruiting, where you will be spending the majority of your time in Dynasty, the biggest thing is setting it up so guys cannot build up the University of Phoenix within 2 years to compete with Alabama and Michigan. With the system in place, I feel they've added excellent variables into the mix to keep that from happening. From the different ways you can garner interest from a player in the beginning stages, to then making your push selling them on your program when you're almost at the finish line. And figuring out the ideal sales pitch to get them to commit to your program is like trying to make the excellent dish for dinner. They also make it harder to ascend quickly with lower rated programs due to the allocation of recruiting hours. High-end schools will likely have over 1,000, while a one-star school will only have about 300 recruiting hours. Even if you start at the top of a player's list, you'll have to be strategic with how you spend your time to land every recruit. I like the game within a game of staying on top of new developments and pivoting on guys when the time comes every week. I haven't had any super crazy recruiting clashes yet, and I chalk that up to being a good thing. The system does reward you for your time and effort without making it easy. I also love that auto-generated player badges are based on a player's rating and position. This makes these made-up players feel more like actual players in your 2047 Dynasty. The addition of the transfer portal also adds another layer to the recruiting game. If you still have a critical team need or had a player unexpectedly transfer or go pro, you have one last chance to fill that hole. The quick turnaround time of this period takes the fun of recruiting to a new level. It takes the process that usually lasts all season and boils it down into just a few weeks. You feel the pressure of finding somebody, anybody, to fill that final spot on your team, so you're not rocking with a 77 overall senior redshirt quarterback. Along with the new skill trees and recruiting system, there is plenty more to sink your teeth into in Dynasty mode. The new 12-team college football playoff system makes its first appearance in the game. Seeing this new system play out in the game helps me understand it more than I initially did when it was adopted in real life. The coaching carousel returns with some major changes. This process now takes place over several weeks. As you move through the offseason, you will receive offers from different teams. This adds an element of mystery as you aren't sure whether to accept a job or hold out and hope a better one becomes available next week. Even though in my first go-around after leading Miami to the national championship game, I was only offered offensive coordinator jobs. I don't know what's up with that. Road to Glory returns with a complete revamp of the mode. You no longer start in your senior year of high school. Instead, you immediately create your character and choose which path you want to go down. Do you want to be the top 5-star in the class or a 2-star underdog? If you go with a lower ranked prospect, expect to spend some time on the bench unless you go to a very small school. Playing time feels very realistic. You will need to make it a priority when choosing which school to go to. Also, don't think you can come in as a backup and win the starting job in a couple of weeks. It don't work like that. As you start to gain the coach's trust, so will the guy in front of you on the depth chart. You only get a chance to replace him if you are clearly outperforming him, which adds to the realism. As a college athlete, you will need to manage your time throughout the week. You will have to choose to spread your time between the 5 activities: academics, leadership, health, training, and building your brand. Each decision you make on where to place your time will have its benefits, as well as drawbacks from not committing that time elsewhere. It actually makes it feel like your choices matter. Another place where your choices matter is in your interactions. Each week you'll be contacted by a variety of characters. This includes your teammates, coaches, reporters, or people offering you NIL deals. How you respond to these messages will affect how people think of you, as well as things like your GPA and personal brand. With how great the mode is off the field, it is just as fun and addicting as ever on it. The different camera angles offer you different views on how each play develops. Your teammates will perform according to their ability, so if you choose Kennesaw State because you wanted to be the starter on day one, just know that your teammates won't offer you much help. One of the few places in college football 25 where the Madden reskin label can somewhat apply is in Ultimate Team. College Ultimate Team seems to be structured and formatted similarly to how Madden Ultimate Team has been in the last few years. The addition of solo seasons does finally give offline players more to do in the mode besides just challenges and solo battles. This actually gives College Ultimate Team a chance of being a great change of pace from Dynasty or Road to Glory, where you can just turn your brain off and grind against the computer for a few hours with some YouTube video in the background. The biggest drawback I felt is the initial difference in gameplay compared to the base game. Because the starter team has such low ratings, playing with it feels like playing on a field of quicksand. I know that once I get better players on my team, it will probably feel better, but with the long grind that EA Sports Ultimate Team mode usually requires to get those better players, it makes me question if this juice is worth the squeeze. Especially for players like me who refuse to fork over tons of money each week on new packs. When it comes to the pageantry and tradition in sports titles, College Football 25 once again is like no other. One of the main missions of the development team was to bring the atmosphere that surrounds college football to life for every team. They knew that every squad was somebody's favorite, and every team's traditions, chants, songs, and more were honored in the game. From the intros playing at Notre Dame, Clemson, Florida, to players throwing up the U at Miami, College Football 25 knows how important these little details are to fans of these schools. The atmosphere created in this game is incredibly immersive and a huge step forward for this genre of games. It is also a huge step forward that actual college football athletes are being compensated to have their name, image, and likeness represented in the game. The face scans and player models look top of the line, and having the real rosters without having to wait weeks to download them is a great improvement for the series. Another nice addition is the different options you have for equipment. Players out here with their belly showing, a hoodie on, and all types of stuff. It's cool to finally see what they've been thinking about adding for years finally make it into the game. For a long time, players have been asking sports games to add multiple broadcast teams as a new feature. College Football 25 is one of the first games to add multiple full broadcast teams into their game. Chris Fowler and Kirk Herbstreit, who always brings their A game, lead you whenever it's a game with serious stakes at hand. Meanwhile, the three-person team of Reese Davis, Jesse Palmer, and David Pollock will call the rest of your games. Beyond nailing the excitement of big plays against your hated rival, I love even the random comments that I've heard so far, like mentioning Detroit Lions legend running back Kevin Jones, while I'm using Virginia Tech or Miami being that wide receiver factory back in the day. The depth of the commentary for each team is incredible and must have taken weeks or months to record between the 5 commentators. I must admit I was slightly disappointed with the presentation in between plays. It feels like the game wants to get you back to the play call screen as quickly as possible. Though to be fair, they do show replays of big plays even 2-3 plays ago in the play call screen. Stats and ratings of random players will also show up on the play call screen as well, which is cool to see. But this lack of presentation between plays is noticeable in big games, like the national title game. It feels just like another game besides showing the trophy in the beginning and the Madden lifted celebration with whoever won that game. Although yes, I admit it's a small nitpick, I would prefer more on the field stat overlays and such. College Football 25 runs very well and takes full advantage of the modern consoles. I reviewed the game on a PlayStation 5 and had a silky smooth frame rate the entire time. I did notice an occasional visual bug like a player's hair clipping through their body, but nothing horrendous. I also only experienced one crash which occurred while super simming a game in Dynasty mode. However, I did not experience it again when I did the same thing later on. The SEC has a motto that it just means more. That's a saying that could really apply to all of college football. As attached as people may be to an NFL team, college football fans live and die with theirs. Entire generations of some families are linked by the fact that they all attended the same university. The team behind College Football 25 knew how important these teams and this sport are to the fans. Add on top of that the fact that this series was on hiatus for 11 years, and you can see why the hype and expectations for this game are incredibly high. College Football 25 meets those expectations at every turn, and in many cases exceeds them. The presentation and commentary immerse players in the atmosphere of college football down to the tiniest detail. The gameplay is quick, fun, challenging, and at times infuriating in a good way. Dynasty and Road to Glory are incredibly deep, adding in features that fans have wanted in a football game for years. Even Ultimate Team has a chance to have an actual offline offering for no money spent players. Now, College Football 25 isn't a perfect game, but it does set a new standard, not just for this series, but for sports video games in general. The amount of passion and love that was clearly poured into developing this game is felt every time you pick up the controller. This game made me feel like I was back in my room as a teenager rebuilding NC State on NCAA Football 12 on a snow day from school. And as a sports gamer, there's not much more I can ask for than that. So with that, we give College Football 25 a 9 out of 10.